Now let's talk about the fundamentals of money. Money is a tool. It is both the fuel and the byproduct of us pursuing our God-given calling. But it is never the purpose. Remember, money is all about behavior. Behavior is driven by what we believe, our thoughts, or our mindset. So if we're not making any progress towards a particular goal in any area of our life, in this case, we're talking money, then we have to ask ourselves, what do I really believe? Now that we've talked about the fundamentals of money and how we might think about it and how we might feel about money, let's talk about the practical application of money. How can we use money? When we ask ourselves where we're directing the resources we've been given, we must remember that there are only 4 uses of money. My colleague Mitchell Anthony came up with this concept that really simplifies it for all of us. And those 4 areas, or uses I should say, is to give, to live, to grow, and to owe. How much and what percentage of your income is going to each use? That's the primary question you must answer to establish clarity. This question will be the mirror that illuminates your priorities in your life at this point. The second question would be, what does the world tell us we are buying when we direct resources to each of those uses? The first use of money is to give. I believe there are some global truths about giving. Let me share them with you. Giving brings us joy, but joy only comes after the release. We have to release it. You cannot give what you don't have. So if you have a heart for giving, we need to put plans in place for you to find a way to make money, to accumulate savings, and invest to multiply. Giving is an act of worship. When we release resources, it is actually us submitting, saying to God, we trust you. Generosity begins at 10.1%. The first 10% is the tithe, which is actually an act of obedience, not an act of generosity. This may sound legalistic, but I need to emphasize that generous giving over and above the tithe is when multiplication occurs. Now realize how challenging this may be at this stage, but let's see what the scripture has to say about it. Let's go to Luke chapter 6, verse 38. Give and you will receive. Give and you will receive. Your gift will return to you in full, pressed down, shaken together to make room for more, running over and poured into your lap. The amount you give will determine the amount you get back. The scripture makes it very clear of how the multiplication process works when it comes to giving. The next scripture that I'd like to point out is the fact that giving itself is a gift. Let's go to Romans 12, verse 6 through 8 to see what the word has to say about it. In His grace, God has given us different gifts for doing certain things well. So if God has given you the ability to prophesy, speak out with as much faith as God has given you. If your gift is serving others, serve them well. If you are a teacher, teach well. If your gift is to encourage others, be encouraging. If it is giving, give generously. If God has given you leadership ability, take the responsibility seriously. And if you have the gift for showing kindness to others, do it gladly. So if you study the scripture, giving for many is actually part of your God-given calling. And if you have that seed in your heart, step into that calling and believe for the resources, and God will flow those resources through you. And lastly, giving during your life leads to joy and fulfillment. So let me challenge you to focus on living a legacy and not just leaving a legacy. The reality is you will have to give it away anyway. Whether you spend it, donate it, leave it as an inheritance to your children, or pay the IRS, at some point you will be given all of your resources to someone. So how about giving it to the places where you could have the greatest impact for God's kingdom? The second use of money is to live. We use money to live and support ourselves and our families, which may be our children, and in some cases our parents. We allot money towards our basic needs of food, water, clothing, and shelter. That's our committed expenses. Then we have our leftover, or our discretionary spending, which we may use for fun, enjoyment, and in some cases, possibly guilt, because we've all had those expenses where we regretted it after a few months of having what we bought. I challenge you to take a close look at the balance between your living expenses and your leftovers. That's your committed versus your discretionary spending. This will give you a true perspective on how you are using your money. The third use of money is to grow. I believe there are 3 distinct ways you can use money to grow. You grow by saving, you grow by investing, and you grow by improving the lives of you, your family, and the people you lead. Savings brings flexibility, provision, and a feeling of preparedness. Wise investments bring prosperity and a feeling of prudency. Lastly, we use money to improve the lives of you and your family members through training, education, and experiences. This brings a feeling of accomplishment and a sense that your family is reaching its full potential. Put in the time now, as these exercises are specifically designed to help you throughout the Catapult curriculum. Good luck, and I'll see you soon in the next lesson. God bless.